Hello, welcome to the Rabid Atheist. I am your host, Ed Raby, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm kind of I'm in the midst of a bunch of change in the channel, and so I am definitely heading in that direction. One of the things that's going on in my life is trying to kind of come up with some sort of balance between all these things. Just half hour ago, I was kind of talking about this with my therapist, and so one of the things I've learned about me and producing videos is that I much rather take my time with videos and produce better ones, and so I've been debating with this a lot with myself. So we're gonna I'm heading in a different direction, and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to probably live stream more, and I'm moving my live stream away from Wednesday. Um, one of the things one of my live streams away from Wednesday because I'm constantly running on like days like today where I talk to my therapist and then have to uh, move along and do something different. I also have noticed that there's a lot of really good live streams that I would like to participate on Wednesday. So I think that's kind of one of those things where I'm headed as well. So I'm going to basically do like a live stream, video, live stream, video, live stream. Um, Kind of format every week. The Bible studies will be every Monday where I do my Bible study and get that out there. And I think this one, the live stream Rapid Fire, I'm going to have a regular time where I just take people's questions, and I think that's important to kind of build a community where I'm not an expert in everything. Somebody asked me, what you could come to me for. I'm much more of a literary analysis type of person. So, you know, that's kind of more in my bag. That's kind of what I was taught in Bible college, is to kind of analyze the biblical stories, analyze the books of the Bible. In seminary, I was more of a theologian looking at different theologies and stuff like that. So that's my expertise. Like if you wanted a language question, a biblical language, I would definitely go to Dan McClellan. If you want somebody who understands uh, different things better, it's there's plenty of experts out there, and I'm kind of in agreement with some of the things I heard tonight over on Durante Lamar's thing, whereas don't view me as the expert, go look it up yourself. Okay, but I'm here to kind of guide and direct discussions and things like that about that. So Tuesdays will be rapid fire. I'm going to move this to Tuesday. Thursday will be another live stream. I haven't figured out what I'm going to call that yet, but it'll be me looking at some aspect. And then Saturday, I'm going to be reacting live to videos. And this week is a special one because I will be reacting blind as well. I've been absolutely chomping at the bit to go after Braxton Hunter and his 5 whatever things he has for atheists for 2025. And I think I'm going to hold off on that. And I've noticed like 3 or 4 of my favorite reactors have reacted to this already, and I have absolutely not watched those videos. I am absolutely going to try to do this blind and see what I can do under a situation where I don't have time to think about it. But also at the same time, I think it's good for me. And I'm kind of going to head that way Saturday to just kind of create a relaxing, fun atmosphere where we kind of go after different videos and we'll see what happens. We can react to them together. Let's see. What do we got here? Saw you, Asho. I don't know if you're still here, but I'll acknowledge you. Thank you, sir. And then Fred had to go to work, so he's not here. I do want to thank the mighty Phil Burt for becoming a member. Thank you. Welcome, citizen, to the Rabid Nation. So thank you very much. Let's see. Lisa's here. So welcome, Lisa. I'm sure others will go in. It's going all right. It's going all right. I'm coming to terms with the fact that I get frustrated with my videos now because I don't ever feel like I've had enough time to do the research to do it properly. So I've decided to cut back to 3 videos a week, 3 live streams a week, and kind of go back and forth with them. And then hopefully I'm going to pull some videos, some shorts from those live streams and put them up as shorts and up as smaller videos earlier in the day. So at least for me. So, but I'm much better today. I met with my therapist, and it was a good session, um, dealing with the holidays, mostly. Because as an atheist, the holidays kind of get confused. But I'm so glad they're over. I work in retail, so it's weird because on the 26th of December, I'm like tearing down all this Christmas stuff and putting up all the Valentine's stuff already. That's kind of what I do. That's my job. And I tear old stuff down, put up new stuff, and fill it up. And that's kind of what I do every night, running around the store doing different things. So um, I enjoy it because it's not the same every day, but it's the same every day, so to speak. So, but I don't know, I feel good. Um, you know, I don't have any health issues. I feel good. A little bit motivated, but I'm trying to focus my motivation on doing good work and getting back into writing, hopefully soon, and doing the things that I do. But I'm doing good. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that. I do. Um, let's see. What happened this week so far? Well, yesterday I dropped my video on Jephthah's daughter, and at first it was kind of a slow burn, but today it's been taken off pretty well. Bible studies don't usually do that well with me, and I get better reaction from reaction videos. But man, this one's Jephthah's daughter seems to ignite a fire. So yeah, you know what, Michael, I really do wish we would do that. Uh, there is a joke in retail, like when we hit September, it's like it's time for Holly Thanksmas. Okay, so you're doing Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas all at once. I wish they would. You see some of that, like with like the Nightmare Before Christmas. You got Halloween and Christmas blending together. I wish they'd throw Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day and all the rest of it. We just have one big holiday all year round. But that's a valid point. It's a very valid point. So, but yeah. So, but getting back to my video today, it's been really interesting. Some of the statements that have been made up. It's funny how, like, I think last time I did Jephthah's daughter, a few theists came to Jephthah and God's defense, but I have not seen that this time. Um, this is one of those stories, Jephthah's daughter, that is just like there's a lot of repugnant elements to modern sensibilities in it, and I think there's a reason why people avoid it. But it was kind of a slow burn, but today it's kind of like taken off, and people are watching it, and I'm glad for that. So it makes me, I like all YouTubers, I think I have this. If I'm successful, it makes me feel good, kind of thing. And if it's not so good, it doesn't make me feel so good. So that was kind of good. I'm glad to see that happening. Uh, but yeah, I'm doing good. Uh, the amount of theists that come to my channel has diminished of late. I think it's probably the holiday season. So well, I would tell him that the text doesn't say that he's making that up. That's a made up story. He needs to read it because it doesn't say that. It's one of it's one of the things I hear as well. Everybody like she was temporary. She was dedicated to the temple as a virgin and never. It's like no, that the text doesn't say that. It says that he did as he had said according to his vow to her. Well, the vow says that he would offer it up as a burnt offering. And the reason I think they run to that, okay, is very simple because they know that this story is absolutely a killer for saying that God's a good God, that Jephthah's a hero. Most human beings have a recoiling from the idea of killing children, okay, and or in particular killing your own children. Was the one lady that killed her kids in the 90s by drowning them. She was up for parole and for her first time for parole, and it was like a unanimous vote. No, okay, you're not getting parole. Okay, you're not getting out of here. And so it's modern modern morality, because morality does evolve, kind of still we have this thing about killing, kids are off limits. They're not to be mucked with. And here we have a story that, Jephthah's daughter in that culture, in an ancient culture. I mean, people got married young back in the day because of necessity. People didn't live as long. And so teenagers often did get married very young. And that led to a lot high mortality rate among women because their bodies aren't quite ready to really give birth, some of them. And so you'd have a lot of them die in childbirth. But in this story, she must have been, you know, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 at the oldest. Um, and to our modern sensibilities, that cuts against it. So Christians, who are human beings, read this story and they come up with ways to get around it. But I would ask your friend, where is that in the text? Where does it say that? That sounds like a made up story to meet human sensibilities about the subject today. Um, I'm sorry, it says that he did according to her what he said in his vow. And his vow was that he would take the first thing coming to him and offer it up as a burnt offering. Well, we know the importance of keeping oaths because God has that in his book. His commandments say keep your oaths. That's right out of Numbers 32, 30, colon 2. But also you have the fact that we know what the elements of the burnt offering are from Leviticus chapter 1. And part of it is if you're offering a sacrifice, so like if I was taking a bull to the tabernacle, I'm the guy that has to slit the bull's throat. I'm the one that has to cut it up and get it ready to be offered. I'm the one that has to skin it. Okay, well, all those guidelines would have applied to Jephthah's daughter as well. So it's a hard. I think the reason why theists come up with these explanations for these biblical stories is they know full well that the morality of them is bad, and they're trying to lessen the blow. But even it's a really stupid thing to vow. I agree, but the whole idea of oaths is kind of dumb too. Okay, it's like even if it hurts you, I'm not really sure that that's really good morality. It's like, yeah, the story is very quick. It's like the thing with the women gathering. I would say that that's pretty good evidence that it was a burnt offering ending, because why would you memorialize somebody? Because this is a memorial gathering that these women do every year for 4 days a year. Yeah, you would just go to the temple and see her. You're right. But instead, they're memorializing her. Well, that means she's dead. Okay, that she's dead. And it's like I've had arguments with theists about this story so many times. Because I had arguments with colleagues when I was in the pastorate. I said, this is just not a really good story. Okay. It's not a good thing to, I was talking about it with my therapist today, and she says, well, she wasn't really familiar with the story. She's been out of the faith for a while. And, didn't really dive into it that deep herself, but she was like, that's a horrible story. That's just a horrible story. And I agree with her. And the problem that theists have with this story, and they continue to have with this story, is that they're trying to make things palatable to modern sensibilities and morality. And it's like, well, you don't really have morals in atheists, but we're going to acknowledge your secular morality by changing how we interpret stories so that they're more palatable to that modern morality. It's almost an admission. Um, I sense that this is a trick question, isn't it? BS. Welcome, by the way. Um, oh man. Well, as I recall, didn't the sons of Zebedee argue about this? I seem to remember them coming. I think it actually was their mother. Their mother came to Jesus and asked him, you know, it's the yeah, it was the James and John. They came to they came to Jesus. Their mother came to Jesus and said, "Can you grant them to sit as the right and left hand in in your kingdom?" And it's like Jesus's response, as I recall, is, "Well, it's not mine to give. Okay, that's my Father in heaven who will give that." So, yeah. Yes, that would be Miss Scott, Miss God. Yeah, the thing about this whole thing is what makes it humorous and what makes it so much like mythology is, and we get the mythological elements, is you have all these people currying for favor, okay, um, in the kingdom. It's very much like the old Norse myths and all the rest of it. Mythology has some common elements, and there's always somebody trying to grab the seat of power. And I've always thought that that part of the story was really weird. So, well, here's the thing, Philbert. That depends on your viewpoint of Judas. If you read some of the other Gospels, Judas isn't all that bad a guy. He's not a traitor. He's not. He's just fulfilling the will of God. Um, you have other views of Judas that he's actually the good guy in the story. So, and the disciples are the bad ones. So, it's one of the things I try to get across in Questionable Witnesses is this story is no better than any other of the Gospels. There's tons of them. Now there is a question. Now I can see why you asked this, BS. That's actually quite brilliant. As somebody who used to do theology, I would have probably dismissed this as ridiculous, but at the same time, I now see how the whole thing is ridiculous. So, um, God had a body. Well, the book kind of indicates that he does. I would have, I mean, there's a part in there, a part in the Old Testament where somebody asked to see God. I think it's Moses, and Moses is told, "Well, you can't see me, but you can see my butt." You know, and so God moons Moses. You should do a video on that where God moons Moses. Okay, I mean, because that's kind of what it says is you can't see my front, well, I'll let you see my hind quarters, which is basically saying, so. But yeah, I mean, God is at the left hand of Jesus. So yeah, he would, if Jesus has a body, does God have a body? I mean, I suppose being all powerful, he can make one, but I mean, it's one of those theological questions that I would have a lot of fun with, I guess. You know, it's a lot more fun than how many angels can fit on the head of a pin, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't know, BS. There's a video idea for you where God shows basically moons Moses. God moons Moses. That would be a great title. So, yeah. Actually, yeah. That's the thing. I have another story that's very similar, Michael. When I went with my daughter to Romania, okay, on a missions trip. That was near the end of my career. I was still a little bit of a believer, I think. Um, so I'm I ended up driving through Romania, through Transylvania, Romania, while reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. And that's a point I make to theists as well. Does that mean that Dracula was real because I could actually go to the places? Yeah. And Aphrodite has a place that she's allegedly born and took her first bath. And does it mean that she existed? No. Does it mean that she was a god? No. And so, whenever it's kind of points I try to make, just because God mentions the Bible mentions real places and real people doesn't mean that that's history. And that's one of the things I get in fights over. I don't know their left from their right, like in Jonah. Yeah, that's probably true. Oh, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Yeah. Yeah, he's got a point, BS. That if you're going to have God mooning Moses, showing him his backside, that might be the song in the background. Sir Mix-a-Lot. I don't know. Yeah, I used to, when I was in Bible college, um, I used to sit up in the balcony in chapel and like as far back as you could get in the balcony because I hated chapel. People said, yeah, well, that would have been great. You got all this great preaching on. Well, we're a small Bible college in the middle of nowhere. And so, trust me, great preachers dotting our chapel is not a great thing. It didn't happen often. We'll just put it that way. But one of the things I used to do, and my friend next to me used to do, we used to sing the hymns, but we'd put different words to them that were probably sacrilegious. In fact, I'm pretty sure that most of them were. And we were the two hecklers from the Muppet Show during chapel. I always loved that. I that's probably the only thing I miss about my Bible college days is those moments where you're listening to somebody preach, and even as a Christian, you're like, yeah, I'm not buying that BS. So it's like it's good. The thing about butt jokes though is they're always funny. They really are. So good morning, Moses. That was funny. Oh, but that's the way the story reads. I mean, it's funny to us, but man, the fact that people took this stuff seriously. I mean, the real thing about God and the Bible is the biblical writers do seem to manage to avoid a lot of jokes, except for stuff like that. There's so much stuff in the Bible that's just really ridiculous, and it's kind of fun. Um, yeah, that's true too. They have no end. Oh, but yeah, I can see somebody doing Moses, getting shown the backside of God. I think that's one of the funnier stories in the Bible. I mean, I probably should make a list of Bible stories that won't get in Sunday school, that won't be presented in Sunday school or church very often, or not at all. I think that's one of them. Okay. Can you imagine doing that to a Sunday school, doing that story to a Sunday school room full of, late elementary school boys and girls? I think that would be hilarious. I think that would be hilarious. So, kind of like George Carlin talking about how the word cock is in the Bible, and laughing about it. Yeah, you don't hear that one. I I used to hear it when I was a Pentecostal, a lot more about wrestling with God, but um, learning how to wrestle with God until you get what you want. And Jacob's a good example. But yeah, nobody really talks about the fact that God basically nut punched him. So because that's kind of the way he does. It's like, oh, he touched his thigh. That's not the actual word there. The translators are trying to make it easy on people because that's what he really does. Is he sucker punches him right in the nuts, and and that's how the fight ends. Um, I remember reading. Okay, man, the '80s was a weird time for church anyway, but I remember there was some inner city ministry that back in the '80s or '90s, and maybe it still exists to this day, that would actually do stuff like that. Like they had gambling and prostitutes and everybody there, and then they'd preach the gospel. Okay, remember another story back in the day. It was a news story about this one lady that was a stripper for Jesus. She gave like half her money to the church, stuff like that. I think they would do better with their financing if they did stuff like that. But it's hard to be the paragon of moral virtue, quote unquote, if you do that kind of stuff. I've always wondered how that would go. But there are I seem to remember every once in a while there's a ministry that gets noted in the news because it's basically like we're going to keep the sin and do that stuff. So, but yeah, Friday evening school would be better. I think that Sunday school is kind of boring. Yeah, it is an interesting one, isn't it? That's one of the see the problem with Yahweh BS is this. They viewed him as more of a local god with local powers who had his own peculiarities. And the problem is later on we kind of impose this whole omni god on the God of the Bible, but it doesn't fit. It was one of the things I constantly got pissed off about. So it's a good quiet question of why he's scared of the light. Okay, because he is. He says so. Why is he scared by a light? Yeah, yeah. Paul uses that, but Jesus does too. In John chapter 3, he talks about whoever is evil doesn't want to come to the light so that their deeds are manifested, that they can be seen. But the people that do good want to come to the light. So Paul isn't alone in that. Jesus does it too in the Gospels. So, you know, yeah, it would be, at least it would be consensual in the cases of Friday night Bible study. That would be nice. Yeah, it's the thing with biblical symbolism. And if you study it out, they seem to go back and forth on stuff. It's not. Yeah, that's a discussion we had at Halloween because I concluded that Jesus was a lich, but I'm not really sure about Yahweh. He may very well be a vampire. The funny thing about it is, I think Yahweh was originally this deity that was a hill god. He was a war god. Um, he had a consort. Astaroth was his consort goddess. There's holdovers like the sons of God. The mention of the sons of God is kind of a holdover from the polytheistic days when Yahweh probably had fellow gods, and they just for one reason or another, this religion developed into a more of a our God is the only one or is better than the rest of them kind of thing. I always think it's funny that in the Ten Commandments, God admits that there's other gods. I think that's interesting. But yeah, he's scared of light. He needs blood. Has a thing for young virgins. Yeah, it seems to be kind of one of his thing. Yeah, it's he's not a pleasant character. Yeah, he really isn't. You know, I if there's one gratitude that I have now that I'm out is that I don't have to defend him anymore. I don't have to defend what he is. It's just there's something detestable about Yahweh that I just don't. As a character in fictional story, I just it's really weird the Bible because I just feel like it's God Yahweh is really the bad guy, but everybody's trying to convince you that he's the good guy. And the real good guys are usually human beings that go the opposite direction of what God wants. So, yeah, I think so. Uh, yeah, yeah, he's a lot grumpier in the Old Testament because the consort deities, he's not getting laid anymore. So, it's just they took away his fun time, and then he gets grumpy and decides that he's got to get his thrills by blood and death. So that's a valid theory. It's as valid as any other theological theory about Yahweh. So because we're all making stuff up at this point about him. I've always found the biblical God to be kind of not my favorite. Now I people probably know my favorite. I like Odin the best. He's at least honest with you. If he thinks killing you and throwing you to Fenrir will so forestall Ragnarok, he'll be honest to be out. Yeah, yeah, it's starting to make sense. It's starting to make sense. why he's so angry all the time. It's like he's not getting any. So, it's like he's like, I'm God and I'm not getting any because there's, and unlike, Greek gods and, Roman gods and Norse gods, we're not going to go out and find humans to do that with. That's beneath him, apparently. So, although his angels will do that, that's how we got giants and everything. So, but yeah, he's kind of an interesting character. Yeah, me too. But if I'm there are some interesting things about Yahweh, and it kind of tells you something about the people that created him. Um, I find it very interesting that the people back then accepted so much blood and death when it came from their deities. It's like their deities were glad to accept sacrifices. Even Yahweh, who supposedly doesn't have human sacrifices, although I talked about one on Monday with my video, it's just he's why the need for people to waste stuff they could be using to help with their survival. It's one of those puzzling things of evolutionary human development that we would come up with stuff that kind of is counterproductive. Okay, what advantage does it give us to have religion in the first place? That's become a discussion many times on this channel over the years. So what advantage does it have? And my point has always been, well, maybe you can put it in that context of religion, but now do I need the context of religion? No, I don't. I can figure out what's best for humanity without it. Yahweh's kind of an asshole, and people say, well, but he gets so much better in the New Testament. Really, he kills his own kid. It's like, how is that good? Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the thing with Christian apologists. One of my great frustrations when I was a Christian is I would discover the lies, and it would be like, you're lying. Why are you lying? You're doing apologetics. You shouldn't be lying. And that's how naive I was as a Christian looking for some of this stuff. And as I got older, I realized, man, a lot of people are lying. And then I discovered, hey, I'm lying. Okay. And I don't want to lie anymore. So, but yeah, you have to, the mental gymnastics to say like a story like Jephthah's daughter and make it into God being the good guy and Jephthah being a hero of faith. That's a lot of mental gymnastics that I just don't want to do anymore. I just don't have the stomach for it. So I don't know. They don't talk about size. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Either they're confident in themselves and they don't have to brag about it, or there's nothing to brag about. So, I don't know. The sex topic and that, because like in other pantheons of deities, phallic symbols are prevalent, but in Judaism, not so much. Okay, we get God's butt, but not some of the other anatomical parts. Although it's funny how there's this prohibition against engraved images of birds, beasts, and all that stuff, and yet the temple has some of those. There are actually engraved images in some of the temple fixtures. So I find that very interesting but the phallic symbol appears in almost every other mythology quite prevalently, but not Yahweh, and it does make you wonder why that is. Yeah, we'll do that. But yeah, it's like, yeah, why doesn't Yahweh mention that part and all the other gods do? They other gods brag about that stuff, but Yahweh doesn't. He doesn't brag about that. So makes you wonder why that is. So maybe he's just supremely confident. Maybe that's the one good thing Yahweh had. I'm not sure. But I don't have I don't have a lot of respect for his character anymore. Oh man, the awful mental gymnastics that theists go through to justify Yahweh in the Old Testament. I'm just glad I'm not a part of that anymore. I just don't do it anymore. But yeah. I don't watch a lot. Okay. Man. Mostly because as a content creator, I think I find myself doing more of that than watching other people. So yeah, I don't really watch too many people. Uh, so I watch you guys. I watch BS Lewis, and I watch this guy, Captain Desk. Hey, Dave. But yeah, I'm kind of weird. I guess I like smaller content creators because they really okay. Yeah, yeah. The thing is, people make mistakes. Yeah, but here's the thing, Coyote. If you read the description of the tabernacle and temple, there's stuff that's graven images in it. It's 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 weird because how do you make any kind of architectural structure without it resembling something? Okay. I don't I think the reason God hates art is because if you try to art is one of the more positive expressions of humanity, and you can't have that in a system that basically says all people are sinners and they're pieces of crap. So okay, yeah, me too, but I still do this shit. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I find myself drawn to the smaller content creators because um, a lot of times I see people doing really good work, but they just don't. They haven't had the time. I mean, it's taken me. I'm doing my 5-year celebration on Saturday, and it's taken me this long to get 5,000 subs. And it's like it's a lot of pushing. Excuse me, but it's a lot of pushing in your channel, making more content, and I don't know. I I find myself wanting to see what's up and coming, who's doing well, um, and so there's that aspect of it. I think I appreciate. I think there's a lot of good new ideas that just get buried under the avalanche of a bunch of other stuff. Hey, Wolf, how you doing, man? And haven't seen you in a while, but welcome. Yeah, I'm doing my first episode of Rabyd Fire here, where I just answer questions and deal with comments. So you're welcome to fire away. So, but yeah, we've been talking about Yahweh here, so he's a kind of an interest. Yeah, I think that's why I like the smaller, chat streams too, because I think I've made some good friends because you can actually interact with each other. Like I went over earlier to some of the live streams the last couple days, and they're bigger channels, and it's so big. There's so many people chatting that it's hard to keep track of everything. You literally have to mark everybody. Um, uh, that sort of thing in order to keep the conversation going. Uh, Debating and I couldn't follow along. Seems convincing though. Well, the anthropomorphic ideas of God. I remember as a theologian, I rejected the idea of anything humans use to describe God is going to be anthropomorphic. Okay, like it's, or is it the anthropic? Okay, anthropic. Here, let me. Anthropic. I've heard that, but it's been a while. Uh, well, okay, so we're talking fine tuning argument. Okay. So the other name for it. Here's the thing. Yeah, probabilities, all that stuff. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm it kind of caught me off guard. I have a tendency to be very contextual in my thinking and stuff. Okay. Well, first of all, I reject the fine tuning argument. I think Douglas Adams illustrated the absurdity of that idea with his puddle analogy, where the puddle thinks that, this hole that it's in is perfectly designed for them. It must have been made for them. They can't figure out that maybe they filled in a hole that already existed. And I think that's the same problem with this argument is, how do you know that we simply haven't evolved to fit the hole, so to speak? Um, and so I reject it on the grounds that it could be the other way around. It's not really all that convincing when you consider what science is saying, you know, and I'm no expert in that either, but it seems to me that when you look at evolution, for instance, as one example, we evolved to fit into our environment. So the environment is there first, and we just figure out a way to get in there. I think the people that hold to this argument think that it's the other way around, and they don't really uh, see all of that. So, the problem with the argument is it could be done the other way, that we fill in the gap of what already exists, and it doesn't necessarily require a God for that. So, um, so there's that. Yeah, I've had that. I was in that stage, my friend, because if you go back to the early days of this channel, I was happy when I got a sub. The first year was really bad, you know. So, but I feel you. Oh, Dave, you have a good channel. I appreciate the live streams that you do. You have good guests, and I sometimes I just find myself sitting there listening in the corner, and so it's kind of good. Yeah, probability of existing. It's pretty high when you're just filling a niche. Okay, I think get if you give any situation the right conditions, life will exist. Okay, and I think that's, yeah, it's the puddle argument. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Actually, Dave, I really like your lives. Okay, you do a really good job there. I really, so yeah, yeah. Life finds a way. Yep. So there's that. Yeah, picking up steam. Yeah, could be. I did see your latest one with Jim Bob. I don't like to mention he who will not be named, but I thought you did a pretty good job, and that was brilliant, by the way, because I'm like listening to him, and I'm like, he just went around in a circle and disproved himself, didn't he? So that was kind of nice. That was good. I don't react to him anymore, and I don't really allow him around here anymore. I don't have the patience for him. So the fact that you do, I'm glad somebody's taking on that guy. So, oh, you're very welcome, Dave. I appreciate your work. It's like I was saying earlier, I appreciate newer, younger content creators because we're all kind of hungry trying to figure this thing out. And I'm still kind of the. Yeah, I imagine it wasn't hard, but yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, we always like to backtrack where we are instead of looking at ourselves as a result, okay, of all the things that happened. It's a back probabilistic thinking that creationists do is backwards, for one thing. Okay, it's obvious that we are here, and just because something's improbable doesn't mean it's impossible. And the other thing that used to get me is creationists like to think that there's like one shot. Like, it's like I would give them the analogy: if you go out into a rainstorm and stick out your tongue, there's a pretty good likelihood that a raindrop's going to hit your tongue. But if you calculate the probability of that exact raindrop hitting your tongue, it's pretty high. But the probability goes down if you have millions and millions and millions of attempts. So, I'm going to tell you, Alex, that your problem that you're going to run into with believers, especially if they've been believers for a while, is you have indoctrination to deal with. I used to do it. There's certain catchphrases that you always do with Christianity and with the Bible. Well, like, well, that's just certain Christians. That doesn't mean Christianity as a whole is wrong, which is a valid point. But it's like when you see this kind of behavior out of Christians on the regular, it is a problem. Um, so there's that. That you're going to run into the fact that he has been told over and over: A, God is good; B, the Bible is His word. You can't challenge that. The way indoctrination works is puts a shield around asking certain questions, and so you're going to run into that dissonance all the time. So, and yeah, this is the other thing you mentioned it here. It's they always will run to faith if they can't explain it. Um, uh, well, if I were to take that to its logical conclusion, then every star in the universe should have a planet around it with life and people. But as far as I can tell, the vast majority of the universe is a very hostile place to people. Okay, so I guess I would see. I think the problem, as Michael mentioned before, is we reason from ourselves and our situation, and we don't look at ourselves as an end result. We look at it as a way we're reasoning from ourselves backwards, and that's not the way to do probability. But yeah, yeah. The problem of evil, they still try to. they have a they have a theists have a real hard time with that one, and they always try to pass it off on me. But I'm like, I don't really have a problem with the problem of evil. It exists, and that's just the way it is. Yeah, no, Jim Bob even said you did a good work, BS, so it must be true. Uh, I do. I think if Bren is around, he's my Australian member and one of my mods. He runs an unofficial Discord for the Rabid Atheists, but I don't know if he still does. Um, the thing with Discord is, do I have time for that? Okay, I'm trying to keep my uh, there. I can't say. Here's the answer that annoys people the most, but it's also usually the most truthful. I don't know, but I don't see that. You know, um, as BS pointed out in one of his videos, if matter can't be created or destroyed, the first law of thermodynamics, then matter and energy have always existed. Okay. And is that an infinite universe? I don't know. Is it a pulsating universe? All these theories are on the docket, and the proper answer is which one of them is true? I don't know. Okay. I'm not that. An infinite number of people. Well, that would be interesting. No, probably not. I hope not. I think we have enough problems with the ones that actually are here. So, yeah. Yeah, there's just a lot to that. My issue with a lot of things that get thrown in my direction is the lack of nuanced thinking about the subject. It's why I appreciate people that do humor. Like there's one in the room. BS does a lot of good humor, but humor also kind of opens up your brain to other possibilities, and you suddenly realize that something isn't as nuanced, isn't as black and white. I think the problem with religious people and their thinking is that I deal with all the time is this black and white. Um, you know, it's it's just all over the place. It's like they have to have this. Well, is it right or wrong? Is it good or evil? And it's like, well, there's a lot more nuanced description. I when I was on I Killed Earl's birthday stream, JL was trying to make that point about morality is like it's a long. What he should have said first was, "Yeah, Hitler was a piece of shit," and then he should have said, "But is all of his behavior a piece of shit?" Well, probably not. Okay, so um, that's kind of shaken fist simulation hypothesis. Is that a new one? Is that one going around? I haven't heard of that one before. That were all the result of somebody shaking their fist. That would make sense. I may have to buy that one. If there was an infinite number of people, then the probable is okay. Let's say the probability of a raindrop hitting your tongue is like 1 in a million. That particular raindrop hitting, but is it probable that a raindrop will hit your tongue if you stand out in a storm where millions of raindrops are falling? Yes. So it's a bad understanding, um, of how probability works most of the time. And I think that's where that argument for God fails for me. I really probably should do all my arguments for God videos. They were like 2 years old. I could probably go do them again and add some modern spin to them. But I think I rejected this argument because it was a poor understanding of how probability works. And as Michael says before, you're reasoning from yourself backwards probability, and you have to actually start at the beginning and move towards you as an end result rather than, because theists like to think of themselves as we are the pinnacle of God's creation. And so everything reasons from us. It's the same, Roman Catholic, Earth is the center of the universe kind of flawed thinking that gets there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You have a very low probability of existing just because your parents had sex, okay? But it doesn't change the fact that here you are. And so obviously low probability doesn't stop things from happening. The talking donkey story. I mean, you end up in Shrek, right? I don't know. It's the talking snakes, the talking donkeys, the voices out of clouds. I don't know. The more I look at all this stuff, it's like the ancient people had access to all these plants, that made them high, and I think they were on some pretty good shit sometimes. So, yep, I think humor does that for me. Zach runs the world in his basement. Is he doing a good job? Because if he's doing a good job, I'm going to let him fucking keep doing it. I think this is why I do it too, and why I try. One of the things that's really been bothering me about the atheist community, this is me being reflective on myself and other people, is I'm trying to have discussions with people, and everybody else is ranting. Okay, and I think what humor does is it kind of gets us back down to that human level where we all can laugh at something, and then we can actually have a damn good discussion about it. It drops defenses, and I think that's one of the good things about it. And so I try to be humorous in what I do. I'm just not as good at it as some other people. I'm more. I got my English dry, sarcastic wit from my grandfather, so hanging around him and talking with him every summer. So my mom's a lot like that too. So the dry, sideways, sarcastic comment, I love that shit. So yeah, this is what I'm thinking. It's like you're the thing with the probabilistic arguments for existence is you're making the assumption that you're the tip of the pyramid, that you're the top of it, that you're the big thing, and then everything else comes out of you. And when you get more realistic about it, one of the things that humbled me when I became an atheist was how not important I am in the grand scheme of things. Okay. And it's really hubris that kind of guides that probabilistic argument that somehow we're the pinnacle of whatever. And we're not. Okay. It's very humbling to realize that you're just a species of ape on a planet, in a very insignificant part of the universe. Okay. At least I can't tell that it's significant. And that given all the things that could happen. So that's the way it works. And suddenly you realize you're just not that. Uh, yeah, that's where my grandfather is from. He was Welsh, so his actually I should say his grandfather was Welsh, and then they kind of kept the Welsh thing going in the community down in Kalamazoo, Portage area in Michigan. Yes, there really is a Kalamazoo, Michigan. Been there many times, uh, and he had a farm there, and he had that kind of UK, uh, humor, and that's where I got it from. So, but I feel at home around sideways sarcastic comments. I understand that that is very UK. So um, it's a lot of fun. Michael, there are some people. I am not one of them because I appreciate German humor because I have been a participant in some of it. That you guys don't have a sense of humor. That's your problem. So kind of gets back to why Yahweh's so angry all the time. He's just not. He lost his consort goddess, and that's why he's grumpy all the time. So. Oh, I don't know, BS. Well, I'm going to tell you something about your comment. Okay. And so here's my problem. You had an emotional experience, you didn't receive anything. As a former Pentecostal who had a crap ton of spiritual experiences, I can tell you what they are. They are emotional experiences that you put in a certain context because that's what seemed convenient at the time. I'm not saved. You're not saved. Nobody's special with some special relationship with God. It's all made up and it appeals to your ego. And I know that that's probably not acceptable at this point, but I left the faith because I can really, really, really uh, understand how faith works. Okay. And so I don't know what you accepted on January 1st, 2021, other than that you're having an emotional experience and you tied it to that. Okay. But, we post hoc rationalize our so quote unquote spiritual experiences all the time. And as somebody who had a lot of them, I can tell you what they are. They're not real. Okay. You're putting your own context. You're trusting a lot of things. You feel something, but how do you know it's the Holy Spirit? Can you verify that evidentially? No. You have a certain feeling and you equate that with the Holy Spirit, but you don't know that it's actually the Holy Spirit. As far as you know, it could be the spirit of Odin the All-Father, okay, or some other spirit. You don't know that. You decided to call it that, okay, and that's not proof of anything. And feelings are very, very deceptive. I would also say they're not a good way to live your life. Every religion has them. Uh, you are welcome to try, but if it's experiential, it's not evidence. We don't put experiential evidence in courts of laws for good reasons. Yeah. See, I've got another one in my audience that had the opposite experience. Okay. So what do you do with that? How do you adjudicate between people's experiences? That's the problem with the argument from experience. Okay. If you're going to give me experiential evidence, okay, that's the problem with it. How do you know your experience is valid and other people who have different experiences is invalid? That's why it's useless. Even my apologetics professor in Bible college said that experience was useless to prove faith because Buddhists have experiences, Mormons have experiences, Hindus have experiences, and they use that to prove their faith. So, on what basis do you say your experience is right and theirs is wrong? Yeah, he really has a problem with control. Oh man, the leg growing thing. Oh my God. All the stuff I used to see in the Pentecostal church that I now know is fakery, and it's just magician's tricks. Oh, so, but you know, I I could describe similar experiences that I had in the Pentecostal church where I thought the Holy Spirit was real, and later on you realize you have this feeling, and then you define it as the Holy Spirit. Um, and so that's not good evidence. Feelings aren't good evidence because one, you're once again you're it's all that. And okay, so before I have a friend who did all the things that you talk about, although I don't, I think blasphemy is a good thing these days, but uh, cussing, all that, all the porn, lies, steal, all that stuff. I've known plenty of people who did that. I'll give you a historical figure. Malcolm X would probably say much the same thing, and he became an Islamic person and said it was his experience with Islam that caused him to stop all those things. So, what makes your experience valid and his invalid? I mean, I can go on like this all day because there are tons of testimony experiences from every single religion exactly like that. So what? Okay. All it proves is maybe a religious experience with whatever religion might get you to turn around your life. You had an epiphany about your life and you turned it around. Doesn't mean that God did it. Okay, that's your interpretation that you think is infallible, but it doesn't prove anything. Okay. There's tons of people that have the same experiences of other religions. I know people who became Buddhists who got rid of all that stuff. I know people who became Islamic who got rid of all that stuff. Mormons, um, Jehovah Witnesses. The list goes on and on. So that doesn't prove anything to me. So you think? Do you have any evidence? I feel calmer when I meditate. I still meditate, but it's more about getting calmness of mind. And as far as sin goes, I don't believe sin exists anymore. Okay. It doesn't have any empirical evidence. It's just something the Bible says is wrong. Okay. I've had this discussion many times on this channel, and I'm here to do a live stream where I'm answering people's questions. That includes yours. But I'm going to tell you right now, once again, tons of people have these experiences and they connect them with whatever religion is handy. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, Michael here, same thing. He's turned his life around, but he hasn't embraced a God. So what's your point? Okay, that doesn't prove anything. Yes, what is bloody wrong without? Yes, bloody hell. But no, they're you're labeling things as sin because somebody told you that they were sinful. Not all of the things you listed I would consider wrong in the wrong context. So I know people, once again, in other religions that haven't smoked weed, haven't looked at porn, stop lying, turn their life around. Yeah, I mean, there are tons of people with that story, and there are all kinds of different religions. They lack religions. What you had is a life epiphany, and you've connected it to Christianity because that's what you feel. But I can tell you that if you had been around in an Islamic country, you would be praising Allah for the same thing. If you were in a Buddhist area, you would say, you would become a Buddhist and got rid of all that stuff. It doesn't prove that your faith is true when everybody has these experiences. How do you adjudicate that your experience is the correct one with the right God and theirs is wrong when everybody has these? Okay, that's the thing. I was a Pentecostal, so laying hands on people and praying for the sick to recover was a regular, um, I don't know, thing for me. I always did it in the context of divine healing sermon, usually, but also every day in some of my churches, we had that after service. So it was pretty normal. So yeah, but it's uh, well, I was indoctrinated into the faith as a Christian. Okay, sorry, I grew up in the church. I became a Christian, went to the altar, accepted Jesus in my heart. I was part of a Pentecostal church. I mean, my deconversion story is like an entire playlist on this channel. You can look for it if you want the details. But I think I became the religion I became the same way everybody else does, including you. You're around it and you have experiences with it, and it allows all that other stuff. You eventually connect with it. There's really good psychological reasons of why we pick the faith we are, and most of it has to do with emotion, and it doesn't have a thing to do with reality or reason. Okay, I stayed in the faith because of emotional reasons, so that doesn't help. It, I mean, by your own admission and receiving the Holy Spirit, it seems like just the Holy Spirit comes upon you. Well, that's an emotional experience. You had an emotional experience and you interpret it a certain way. Other people do it different. I, that's what was preached to me. I mean, I know all the verses, dude. I mean, if you want the biblical verse, that's in Romans 10. You have to believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead and accept him as your Lord. I've done that too. Okay, if our message of salvation, our church covered all the biblical bases plus all the ones that aren't. Okay, so, so yeah, so that I'm sorry, you still haven't addressed my questions, which is how do you adjudicate your experience is true versus all these other people who also have had similar experiences with other religions? On what basis do you say yours is true and theirs is false? Because you have to. So. Yeah, I've gotten that about a million times in the 5 years running this channel, except for people that believed as I did. Yeah, I've never sinned. I don't think sin's a real thing. I just don't. Of course, I was. The guilt trip was strong in my religion. Okay, but when I discovered that sin isn't real, it's a made up thing by the Christian Bible. Yes, it gets pretty easy to discard. If you don't have a God giving commands, then there is no sin. Okay, so yeah, I think it's better just to move on instead of having guilt about it. But plus, you begin. Let me ask you. Oh, well, that's a good question, actually. So when Corrie ten Boom in the Netherlands, who was a devout believer, lied to the Nazis that she was protecting so she could protect Jews that were hiding out in her house, was that evil? Yeah, of course it is. Well, I won't call it evil. It's wrong. I think it's one, I have too much pride to steal, for one. I think pride is a good defense against stealing. But yeah, there is definitely ways that from a secular ethics, moral point of view, you can say things are wrong because they hurt people. Okay. I mean, but once again, you still haven't answered my question. On what basis do you say your experiences are true and other people who have the same experiences are false? That they connected it with a false God. How do you adjudicate between the two experiences? That's the problem with the argument from. Okay, if you're going to do okay, if you are going to do Doofus's the Banana Man's spiel here, I'm going to shut you down. Okay, because I've already dealt with his bullshit so many times I've lost count. Okay, but if you're going to sit there and talk about heavy lying, sinning, whatever, understand you haven't dealt with my basic objection, which is sin does not exist if there is no God. Okay, that's just a title that Christians and believers in that give it. It doesn't actually really exist. Yeah, exactly. For her. Well, no, what I'm saying is if a Muslim comes up to you and gives you the exact same story, you guys are sharing stories back and forth of how your religion changed it, and you say, and thank Jesus Christ. And he goes, no, thank Allah, who's Muhammad is his only prophet, because that's what brought me in there. That's what I'm saying. You have to deal with the fact that everybody has religious experiences in religion, and you have to figure out which one's real. Okay, but yeah. Thanks, Sasso. I was about to do that because the guy is definitely going, banana man on me about, sin. And you got to get A, prove a God exists, B, prove that he gives commands, C, prove those commands lead to sin, and then D, and the rest of it with the gospel message. I've heard that so many times I've lost count, but thanks. Yeah. I'm going to put this one up. No, murder is a sin is a definition. I would say murder is wrong. Murder is evil. Yeah, I'll buy that, depending on your definition of evil. But calling it a sin is something that religion does. It's not something that we do in real life. Yes, he has a. See, it's one of the defenses of people in in the faith is when you ask them hard questions they can't answer, they start asking you questions to deflect. It's like, my problem with that commenter is this: I've asked you a question. How do you say your experience is legitimate and the real God when a Muslim or a Buddhist or somebody else has those same religious experiences, cleans up their life, does the whole same thing? Is that because of the religion, or is it because at certain points human beings get to epiphanies in their life where they turn their life around? Yeah, exactly. That's what, murder's kind of wrong by definition. That's the problem with that life. Okay. I knew so many people in the, I knew so many people in the faith, in the Pentecostal faith, that were doing it based on emotion. And then what happens when the emotions start to diminish or become something different? And a lot of people walked away at that point. I mean, what I really like to talk about every once in a while is how many people during my ministry I would watch walk out of the church and not come back. And then I would check with them a couple of years later. Well, why'd you leave? Well, it just seems kind of like it's stupid and nonsense to me. And, no offense, Pastor Ed, but, kind of thing. And I think that's where I started to realize, this is going to start happening more and more often. The internet is killing religion. It's why religious countries have so many restrictions on what people can search for and things like that. Like, your average Islamic country has all kinds of rules about how computers can be used and the internet can be used. Why is that? Because sooner or later you're going to run into some YouTube former Muslim, okay, that's going to tell you that you're full of shit. So there's that. Yeah, that's kind of what it was going to. And I'm looking for a conversation where you're at least indicating to me that you're listening to me when I ask a question. Like, I asked you a question. How do you differentiate? Can you give me an answer to that? And no, we're going to move on to my next question towards me. And it's like, no, that's not a conversation. That's you with a spiel and an agenda, and I don't have time for that. Doofus is next. Poor Doofus. Oh, you guys are great. Well, question and answer, yeah. I've told it before. The mods in the room know, if a theist actually goes back and forth and answers my questions, and that's a conversation. But when I keep asking questions and you're just like not responding, I just read an article today. The nuns, the NONEs in America, now outnumber the Catholics and the Protestants individually. Like, I think the Catholics are at like 24%, 25%, and Protestants are about the same, but the nuns are in the country, the people with no religion are like at 28% right now. It's like more than a quarter of the country. So, despite all the things that are happening politically, I really feel like there's a certain group of people that are having this last hurrah of pushing their religious agenda, and their time is limited and their time is numbered, and they've just maneuvered their way into political power and they're pushing that. So, but yes, my last report on churches in America is we're closing about 3,000 of them every year. Okay. Consciousness is well documented as a development of brain evolution. Consciousness is necessary to even do what we do, and it is evolved trait. We're now able to observe consciousness in animals, apes. Most social species start to develop some sense of themselves. Almost every living creature seems to develop this thing. It's not special, would be my response. Okay, everybody seems to have it. Oh, yeah, that's my problem. I get people who come on here and they forget A, that I was a Christian for 40 years, B, that I was a pastor for 20 years, and C, I have degrees in this shit. Okay. Okay. And I mean, the guy that I was talking to he made a couple comments this week. And he's quoting Bible verses like I don't know what they say. Okay. It's like I already preached from those 100 times. Okay. It's like what you should be asking as a theist, how does a guy who knows the Bible so well decide that it's all bullshit? Well, maybe he might have something there. Okay. But yeah, I do get mad about that sometimes. It's like, quit treating me like a child. Okay. I know this stuff. So, well, car's not biological. Okay. So I, I I honestly don't know that. What do you mean by reason? I mean, we human beings reason a certain way, but we've kind of seen how other animal species make decisions. I mean, from Pavlov's dogs on, we begin to document there's some thought and some reason. Is reason all that special? I don't know. I think it's a superior way to doing things, but so I don't know. I don't know, BS. That's fair, I guess. Yeah, I am imagining right now, Alex, that there are 100 denominations who, because their denomination is collapsing and their religion is collapsing in the Western world, that are going to come up with a whole bunch of end of the world. Because when our religion's gone, that's when Jesus is coming back. So, but my old church is still going, but it is had to take. It's because it's the church. It's the big white church on the corner of a community with the old Gothic architecture that everybody uses as a landmark of the town. And the way the church operates is so general that any Christian can join. So what has happened is as other churches in the area have shut down, people have come there. Okay, that's what's happening is church consolidation, and people are setting aside their differences because of it. I suppose that's a positive thing, but that's what's happening in the United States. Well, I think the biggest problem I have with this statement is prove there's a soul, prove there's an immortal soul. Okay, what are we talking about when we talk about soul? I got to know a definition before I can say whether I like that or not. So, yeah, they have to. They have to make decisions. I would say some animals are damn clever. Okay, um, my my daughter has a dog, and he's kind of dumb in most things, but man, is he clever in figuring out how to get food. Okay, he there's definitely something going on there. There's wheels turning. You know, yeah, it's. I think the biggest problem I do have with Christians and theists who come here is they assume my ignorance. Like I haven't. I was a I read widely a ton of theologians when I was getting my master's degree because I was working on different types of theology at the time. And so when a Calvinist comes in here and wants to say, well, you don't know the true doctrine of Calvin, I'm like, I read the flippin' Institutes of the Christian Religion cover to cover. Okay. I know what Calvin believes, and I think he's full of shit. So, it's like, uh, yeah, I mean, and what do you do with people who have been atheists for a long time, like Michael? It's like, and yet turn their life. Yeah, yeah, it seems to be seen in other animals to varying degrees, and I think reasoning as well. There are definitely some decision making elements, and preference elements to a lot of animal species and what they think. I think the thing with humans is we've kind of codified all that and we put it down in writing and we share it with others. And, you know, I'm not sure how the rest of them do that if it's more instinctual than us. We've gotten, I don't know, we've developed certain mental capacities that seem to be beyond just instinct, or whatever you want to call that. So, yes, I get that too. Well, have you ever gone to church? Have you ever gone to a real religion? And it's like, no, yeah, I have. It's, it, I think the most funny moment I have with most of the commenters and the comments on my videos is when I point out my experience and they go, oh, because the assumption is I've got knowledge that you don't have. That's why I'm a Christian. Okay. And everybody else is ignorant. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people know about Christianity. They know what it believes, and you got to quit making that assumption. So, yeah, I don't know. I like fun stuff. I like fun mythology. The Greek myths and the Norse myths are pretty cool. I feel like the Romans just copied everybody else sometimes, but um, I no. I think I think the problem with that is I do enjoy the fact that they come here in a certain sense. I don't think what theists realize is when they dislike my videos, when they put a comment in the comments, that actually gets attention too. So it's all good. It's all good. But I often have, I open my stuff with a former pastor turned atheist every time, now a compassionate anti-theist. So I'm letting you know what I am right out the gate. Every video, every live stream. I do that every time. And apparently people have, stoppers in their ears at that moment. So oh, yeah, Michael has the appropriate response. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from in many different ways. Yeah, yeah, that's a new one. I may have to take a look at that. But it's like I open with who I am. I worked a long time to get that short phrase because I used to have a much longer introduction if you go to the older days of the channel. But saying a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-atheist, was actually the product of about 2 weeks of work trying to take those ideas and boil them down into one simple phrase. And if I ever get Merc, it's going on a t-shirt. So at some point, maybe this year, I think I'll finally get the Merc thing situated. But and maybe some mugs with "I'm a compassionate anti-theist" on them might be good too. I think a lot of you would like to have such a mug. So help me out at the same time. So, but I do have to kind of wrap it up, guys. I've got to get ready for work. This has been fun, but I'm going to move this live stream Rapid Fire to Tuesdays. I'm going to do something else on Thursdays next week. I'm moving away from Wednesdays because I keep butting heads with my therapy sessions. And I would rather spend my time after a therapy session to think about it and digest it. And today is just another good example where I had a good therapy session, but I had to rush off to a live stream. So I think I'm going to move it away from Wednesdays, and then it'll just be like, so it'll be Tuesdays and it'll be Thursdays that I do live streams plus Saturday. So 3 live streams a week and then 3 videos a week, hopefully. I'm still working my way up to that. So be patient with me. I'm struggling through some other things. I feel great, feel good mentally. It's just the other things that are a struggle right now. So, all right. Sounds like it's a good idea. Thank you. You guys have a great evening. As always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. So make sure you're taking all your time, money, and opportunities and use them for yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. Don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And as always, thanks for stopping by, guys, and I will catch you next time.